I'm Tree and this is Stitchless TV.
Mommy.
We've got the family over today, so this has got to be a real quickie. But they were playing football outside in the gardens and I had a brilliant idea to commemorate the World Cup. And I'm going to make the most amazing bag. So what you need for this football bag is you need a deflated football, something for the lining, a zip that's going to fit all the way round. Now it's better that you choose a zip that is longer than shorter, and then we can shorten the zip. I've got a little bit of leather for when I shorten the zip, and I'm going to use some football studs with some 25mm nuts to go on the back. I know what I look like, but you need to cut your football into 2 halves. So I used a scalpel to start it off, and then when you've cut them into 2 halves, keep that inner, well, it's not a tube, it's an inner ball that gets inflated, because we're going to use this to make our pattern for the lining. It just occurred to me that if we cut the inner ball, we can work out what size of segments we need and then use them as a pattern, add some seam allowance, use them as a pattern for the lining, but I just need to see how many I need. So I've worked out that I need 6 of these segments to make a ball, but I haven't got any seam allowance, so I need to draw it out on some fabric with some seam allowance. Now just to make it faster, I've laid out my fabric, so by cutting 1, I'm actually cutting 4 because I've laid it up. I'm going to take my lining and put them right sides together, and then using D straight stitch on the mini JL and a centimetre seam allowance, I'm going to stitch up 3 of them together, put them to one side, and then another 3 and put them to one side. Right sides together and a centimetre seam allowance. When you stitch up the lining, on one of your segments you need to leave a hole that is big enough to turn your ball through. Now when you've stitched 3 together, put it to one side, and then you've got to stitch the other 3 together. I found the most fantastic use for football studs. Football studs are what they have on football boots, and normally they just screw them into this little shank that are in the bottom of the football boots. But if you make a hole in whatever it is that you want to put it into, now I'm going to use this hole puncher, but you can just use a sharp object, but be careful that you don't split it if you're just using little scissors. So my hole puncher isn't really that brilliant, but hopefully it'll make some sort of impression. So I don't know if you can see that, I've made a little hole in there, but it's not gone all the way through. So for the rest of it, I'm just going to stick my unpicker in. And then you get your football stud, which looks really great. I think it looked brilliant on the base of bags. And then get a nut. Now these nuts are 25mm. I think the football studs are probably all 25mm. So you screw the nut onto the other side, and you can just do it with your fingers, and you just screw it on really tightly, and then that's it. It's brilliant. Where is it? That's it. It just stays on there forever. For my bag, all I want are 2 football studs at the front and 2 at the back. So then you've got to do 2 at the back. It's very difficult to line up your football. I mean, it won't matter if you haven't got a print on it, but I have. So I would say now is a good time to make a little mark on the inside so you know where to line everything up. Because I want to make sure that where I put my football studs at the front are the same as where I put them at the back. Right, now's the time to put the lining on. I'm going to start at the top. I kind of made a mark to signify the top when I was making sure that it matches up with the front. Now I don't know if my lining exactly fits, but I'm just going to go for it. Now, because it's potentially a tricky thing to do, I didn't say this, did I? In the very, very beginning, you need to put a leather needle on your machine, because whether your ball is made of leather, fake leather, plastic or rubber, you need to have a leather needle. Using a zigzag stitch, if you want to have a look down here, which is F on the mini JL. Now, you have to sew it the way that I'm showing you now. I've got the lining on the outside, because otherwise you won't be able to get to it. I've got the lining on the outside, and I'm going to zigzag them. Go very carefully all around the ball. You will encounter some really thick seams where the hexagon little shapes that make up the ball are joined together, so you might need to use the wheel on the side to help you get past them. And don't forget, you've got to do the same to the other ball. Once you've zigzagged the lining onto the ball, remember that hole that we had in the lining, we're going to use that to turn the ball through, and then once we've turned it through and pushing it all back, we then need to stitch up the hole in the lining. And the way in which we're going to do that, we're just going to create a teeny weeny little seam allowance, and then we'll just top stitch it using a straight stitch. So using a straight stitch and not a zigzag, backwards and forwards, I'm just pinching those seams together and working my way around the curve of that segment. So I've put the lining inside now on one of the balls, so remember to do the same to the other side. So when you've done both of your balls, you're going to be ready to put the zip in. Now, I want to show you something about the lining. On the lining, you see how it lips over like that? Don't try and force it back, because it's going to become too bulky when you put your zip on. So just as well, we added a good seam allowance. So we're going to leave it so there's this little lip going all the way around. Now get your zip and start measuring it going around the ball. So I'm going to start there, and hopefully I'll remember that that's where I started. I'm going to start working around the ball, and I'm going to roughly see how long I need it to be. Now I'm going to cut it shorter than it needs to be. I'll pour scissors and add some leather onto the end. Using a straight stitch, go carefully now, and particularly when you go over that zip bit in the middle, you might need to do a little jump over it, and then go backwards and forwards when you get to the other side. So you should end up with something like this. I want you to push your ball so that it's your lining on the outside, and decide where you're going to start. You've got your studs at the bottom. I want my zip to start a little bit to the left, and we're going to do it in exposed zip using a zigzag stitch. So I'm going to turn the mini JL to F, decide where I'm going to start, pray, because it's really quite thick, and very carefully start working your way around that ball using a zigzag stitch. Take your time, and over the thick bits use the wheel.
Yeah.
I've nearly gone full circle. I know it was really horrible to do, I'm sorry about that. I've trimmed back my leather because it's too long. I'm folding it back so I get a nice finish there, and then I'm just going to carry on zigzagging. Now that's probably quite thick there, but so just use the hand wheel and go backwards and forwards when you get to the end. I know, that was awful, wasn't it? I'm sorry about that. You end up with something like this. Now we're going to have to attach the other side on. Now I'm pretty sure to do the other side we have to totally undo the zip, making sure that we line everything up properly. Do you know what? I think I'm going nuts. It's a bit stressful. The kids just said to me, Mummy, Mummy, look, bike helmet. Right, they're going to be here soon. We've got to hurry up. Look at this. You've got to line up. The important things to line up are your football studs, which are going to be on the bottom. So make a mark for where you want to start with your zip. So I'm making a mark that I can hardly see on the lining. So I know that that's where I've got to start with attaching the zip. So I made a little mark that I can hardly see. I'm turning the ball inside out, so it's the lining that's on the outside. And I've really got to line up that bit of the zip to there. Now we're going to start sewing the zip round, but then we're going to stop, because then I need to start talking about putting the attachments on for the strap, but then it's nearly done. So are you at this stage? You should be at this stage, like this.
Is it a bra?
I hope not. So you've got to do up the zip, so you just have a little look at what you've got so far. We've only gone halfway, remember? And if you've gone further than that, then you need to unpick it, okay? So look, we're taking shape, and it's quite exciting. Right, now I've stitched halfway, I can see that I'm going to need a strap here and here, although it's this way round. I'll need a strap about here and here, or it won't sit properly. So I'm going to just unpick a few of my stitches. Now I haven't spoken to you about these attachments. You need one of these little toggles. I've no idea what they're called, but they come with the sets of these, the buckles, the plastic buckles, which you get on rucksacks. And then I've got some webbing. So mine is about an inch wide webbing. And what I've done is I've put webbing through one of the little toggles, and then this is the whole buckle that opens and closes. So I'm keeping it closed so I don't get confused. Passing a bit of the webbing through it, and then so I'm dealing with this bit and this bit. Now once you decide where you want to put it, I'd say it's a good idea to put a stay stitch and hold it in place before you stitch it to the bag. So I'm going to stitch it to the zip, not to the bag. I'm going to deal with this side first. Now when working on the bag, it's definitely easier to undo this zip. I'm going to be attaching it like this onto my zip using a zigzag stitch. Look, I am making this up as I go, okay? And I've got the family waiting for their lunch. So I'm slightly under pressure here, doing the best I can. But have a look. I don't recommend that you have your zip opening here. Really, you want it round the side. But I didn't realise that. So I've attached this one on, but it's not attached to the bag, only to the zip. I've now got to attach the other one on. So I'm deciding the alignment of it. I think that's probably about right. So in order to stitch it to the zip and not to the bag, I've undone the zip. And then I'm just going to stay stitch, zigzag it on there. So I'm using a zigzag to hold it in place before stitching it to the bag. So it doesn't interfere with the zip. I'm trimming it back and I'm setting fire to it. Not the zip, hopefully, and not my hair. Whew. When you singe the webbings, it stops them. Oh, don't start a fire. It sort of melts them. It melts them and stops them from fraying. So now using a zigzag stitch, you can finish stitching this zip back on. But remember, you have to push the ball inside out so you can actually get in there. So when you're finishing off, you've got to do the side where you actually open the zip first, because this bit with the leather on has to overlap it. So you do that bit last. So to do that, remember, we undo the zip, we lay it on top, and then we struggle and work our way around. Right, we're back to that weird bra stage again. Now we're done. Look, so we've stitched it all up. Let's do up the zip so it becomes more of a ball shape. Wow. Is that good, or am I just nuts? Maybe a bit nuts. So the last thing we need to do is to attach the strap, and then we're done. So we're going to do that burning thing again. So I'm going to set fire to my webbing. Got a few more relatives arriving now. Pressure's definitely on. So I've cinched the edge. I'll just give it a little squash and it will stick to me. I'm going to pass that through my toggle, going through the hole and then back through the other hole, and then using a straight stitch, which is D on the mini JL, going through the alphabet where it doesn't recognise it. I'm just going to stitch it together. When you pass it through the other side, make sure you don't twist your webbing. So I'm passing it through one of the holes, and then I'm coming back through the other hole. Now look, usually you're supposed to have another one of these toggle bits on here so you can adjust the length of your strap, but I haven't got one, and I'm not going to go and get one now. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that setting fire to the end bit. So because of me not having one of those toggles as an adjuster here, oh, can't believe it, but I can put it on later. I really do need to decide the length of my bag, so I'm going to go and have a little look in the mirror. I think that that's quite good for me, like that. I don't want to cover up the love though. So if you don't have one of those adjusters like me, so I fed it through, I'm just going to stitch it into place when I'm happy with that length. So that's it. That's your football bag. Now I have to say, I don't really think that this is a beginner's project. Everybody's here now, so we've really got to wind it up. I'm going to show you the inside of the bag. It's fully lined. So that's the inside of our fully lined football bag. We use football studs that go on the bottom of football boots to go on the bottom of the bag. And I don't know, I think it looks pretty good. Thanks so much for watching Stitchless TV. Please leave comments at the bottom. I do get round to answering all of them eventually. And don't forget to take a look at my Facebook page, Stitchless TV. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.